My name is Allan Parker. I'm the president of the Justice Foundation. I'm a licensed attorney who practices before the United States Supreme Court, and it's been my great honor to represent some truly historic clients and to be supported and encouraged by so many signers of the Moral Outcry petition, so many friends and supporters of the Justice Foundation. And I just want to thank all of you who have helped come to this day, which is a post-Roe v. Wade America. It's just amazing to say that. And I want to celebrate today. I want to give a little bit of history of how we got there. I want to give praise and glory and honor to God, who I believe is the one that brought us to this day. God alone gets the credit. My press release that I put out the day that Roe v. Wade was released said God has given us the victory. And I'll explain to you on this program why I believe that's true and the things that the Lord told us along the way and that he showed us as lawyers and as attorneys for, first of all, Norma and Sandra. Norma McCorvey was the Roe of Roe v. Wade, and Sandra Cano was the Doe of Doe v. Bolton. And we began to represent them in the year 2000 and to take their cases back to the Supreme Court to reverse the two cases that brought abortion on demand to America. That was historic. That was amazing. But I want to thank you for being a supporter of the Justice Foundation. I want to thank you for financial contributions that some of you have made. Some of you have signed the Moral Outcry petition. I thank you for your signatures, because in the Dobbs case that overturned Roe v. Wade on June 24th, 2022, we had over 539,108 names of individuals that had signed the Moral Outcry petition. It was Melinda Tebow who got the idea for that in prayer, came to us and asked us if anyone had ever given a petition to the Supreme Court. I said no. And then she said, can it be done? And I thought about it a little bit. Well, there's no rule that says you can't do it. And you have a right to petition the government for redress of grievances. And it was the Supreme Court who created the crime against humanity of abortion. So we should be able to petition them to change their mind. And that's what we did with the Moral Outcry petition. And we created that in 2017. We submitted it in about 5 or 6 different cases and times to the U.S. Supreme Court. We were going to continue to present it with ever-increasing numbers until they reversed Roe v. Wade. And the Moral Outcry petition was successful in overturning Roe v. Wade. 2 of the arguments were specifically mentioned by the Supreme Court, so we know they thought about them. And I believe they thought about all the documents. I'm not saying that we alone did it. Again, I say it was God. But I want to thank you, and then I want to thank God. I want to give you a little bit of the history. It was in the year 2000, on February 11th, 2000, actually, after I'd gone to my first March for Life, and the Lord had told me to represent Norma and Sandra, who were asking us to help them in a case. And he told me that they could file their own motions to set aside the court judgments in their names, and that I should collect the testimonies of women hurt by abortion. And on February 12th of 2000, Sandra Cano poured out an incredible story of fraud and deception. And you might want to read her written testimony at our website, thejusticefoundation.org. We have Norma McCorvey, Roe's testimony up, and Sandra Cano's testimony, the sworn testimony they gave to the Supreme Court, and that I believe was a factor in the court's mind also. We made sure they were reminded of that. So anyway, I prayed for 30 days, and the Lord, at the end of the 30 days on February 12th, Sandra, who was Doe of Doe v. Bolton, called us and poured out an incredible story of fraud and deception. Hers was an attempted forced abortion. She fled to Oklahoma during the pendency of the case to avoid being forced to have an abortion. And there was real fraud in the facts in her case. And she swears to that in her testimony. And then that night and the next day, the Lord directed me to a passage of scripture called The Bed's Too Short and Other Spiritual Essays. And it was a little booklet. My wife brought it home from the homeschool library where she'd been putting books up, and she said, I think this book's for you. And it says, if you get this booklet, then you better go with God and expand your ministry, or you're going to be too cramped and too crowded. And God wants to expand you. And that would have been a big change for the Justice Foundation. Our name at that time was the Texas Justice Foundation. We were mostly based in Texas and did work here. But this would be a national project. So the next morning I got up and checked the context of Scripture. And Isaiah 28:14-22 says, this is God talking to the mocking judges who rule in Jerusalem. So these are the national judges and rulers. He said, behold, you've made a covenant with death. You've made an agreement with the grave. You don't think the overwhelming scourge will reach you because you've covered yourself with fraud and deception. Wow. I wasn't looking for that, but that's what Roe and Doe were. A covenant with death, an agreement with the grave entered into by the highest Supreme Court in the land. And then God goes on to say in that passage, I, the Lord, will make justice the measuring line, righteousness the plumb line, and hail will sweep away the refuge of lies. And your covenant with death, your agreement with the grave will be canceled, will be annulled. Wow. And on June 24th, the Roe v. Wade decision was canceled by the Supreme Court. It was annulled as if it had never been, because what they said was it was wrong from the beginning. There was no constitutional right to abortion. There is no constitutional right to abortion in the United States Constitution. And therefore, Roe v. Wade was wrong and egregiously or seriously and gravely wrong from the day it was signed. That's amazing for the Supreme Court to make that change. But it is similar to one of the greatest cases they've ever had, and that people admit was a great case for the Supreme Court. The great case was called Brown v. Board of Education. And what did it do in that case? The Supreme Court reversed one of its own 58-year-old precedents called Plessy versus Ferguson that had said segregation was the law of the land. They said separate but equal was in the Constitution. And for 58 years, African Americans were segregated and put in terrible conditions. And that was a crime against humanity, according to the Moral Outcry Petition, our argument, it was, which occurs when the government withdraws legal protection from a class of human beings. So we put that in the Moral Outcry Petition. That was argument number one. And the Supreme Court compared abortion to the Plessy versus Ferguson case and segregation. Right now, the abortion side is yelling, abortion forever. They argued that and they yelled that in front of the Supreme Court on December 1st in this Dobbs case. The segregationists said segregation forever, but it ended. It ended. Where are we now? We're in that it's comparable to the desegregation period in American history. I call it the de-abortification of America, because now each state has to decide for itself, do you want to choose life or are you choosing death? If you choose life, you'll receive blessing and abundance. If you choose death, you'll find death and destruction. The second argument of the Moral Outcry Petition really is that abortion hurts women. And I was pleased and honored to represent 2,249 women of Operation Outcry, women who had had abortions, and whose brief, which we wrote for them, said in effect, please, Supreme Court, reverse Roe v. Wade. Don't let other women be injured like we've been injured. And we ask you to stop this killing of children, stop hurting women, and use the safe haven law instead. So the safe haven law is our third major argument, because what it is, it says, and you can use these arguments with your friends today. And the moral outcry petition to reverse Roe v. Wade has been successful. Roe v. Wade has been reversed. So now I believe we're going to call it the moral outcry to abolish abortion in every state. And the same reasons why Roe was wrong are the reasons to reverse abortion in every state. So here's the 5 reasons. I've already mentioned number 1 and 2. It's a crime against humanity. It's killing a child. Well, why would we do such a thing? Because we want to help women. Even people in the mushy middle say, who am I to tell a woman what to do? I'd never have an abortion. I kind of know it's icky. Even Justice Ginsburg, who was a notorious RBG, notorious member of the Supreme Court, strong champion of abortion, she wrote in Gonzalez v. Carhart, a 2007 decision, abortion is a difficult and painful decision for most women. Why is it difficult? Because it's killing a child. If you're just removing a wart or something from your skin or wrinkles from your face, there's no guilt, there's no shame with that. I mean, but you're killing a child. It's difficult and painful. So today, the third argument is the safe haven laws, which exist in all 50 states that weren't there in 1973, now make it unnecessary for any woman to have an abortion. Abortion is no longer a necessary evil, even if you thought it was necessary to help women. The safe haven law says for every woman, you can simply walk out of the hospital, leave your baby behind, or relinquish your baby to a hospital or fire station or other designated space within a designated time after birth, and you can be free. You can have the freedom of Roe v. Wade without killing the baby and injuring yourself. Isn't that a better way, America? And actually, most women will probably choose to keep the child, but that's their choice. If they're in such a difficult circumstance that they say, I can't take care of this baby, then we will take the baby as society through the safe haven law. If she says, I don't want to take care of a baby, I don't want to parent a baby, we'll say, we'll take that baby too. You don't have to pay anything, unlike abortion. So it's equally available to the rich and the poor. You don't have to travel to another state to get this. Every state has it. If you're low income, the only expense when you're pregnant is, generally speaking, the medical bills, your prenatal care, the cost of delivery, your postnatal care. And if you're low income, or even 200% at least, twice the poverty limit, most states and many states will support you. And it's included in most insurance programs. So you don't have to pay an abortionist to kill your child and injure you. Use the safe haven laws in every state, and you can go to National Safe Haven Alliance and find your state law. So those are the big 3 arguments. The 4th argument is, well, wait a minute. What's going to happen to all those children? And are they going to be all in foster care? The answer is no. There's a new scientific reality that about 10% of American women are infertile between the ages of 15 and 44. They can't have a baby. That's 6 million women every year. And after a few years of trying to fix it, for whatever the problem is, 1 to 2 million say, I want a baby. Now, there's 1 to 2 million families every year waiting to adopt a baby. So we can now say, we're going to take killing the child off the table. That's not an option. But here's your option. You can keep the baby, and there are 3,000 pregnancy centers in America that will, for free, will help you pay some of the expenses, get the help you need to keep the child if you want. There's free state-provided resources, Medicaid and food stamps and help for every woman in America that's low income. So we won't let you kill the baby, but in exchange for some months of pregnancy, which is serious, then we will say, we'll give you 18 years of freedom from parenting the child and the expense of parenting the child, which can be between $200,000 and $300,000 to raise a child for 18 years. Now, most women find that money, and most women who keep a child are very happy that they did so. But we're going to take killing children off the table. We'll give those children to the families that are waiting to adopt newborn children. And that's where it won't be a burden on society, and they won't be in foster care their whole life. They'll be with a loving home. And the last argument that we made is also for those who say, well, how do I know it's a human being? It's just a blob of tissue. Since 1973, 3 major scientific developments have occurred. And we mentioned all these in our briefs before the Supreme Court. In fact, one of our briefs, we represented Hannah S., the first formerly frozen human embryo to ever file a brief at the U.S. Supreme Court. The test tube babies, and through in vitro fertilization, the first one in the world was 1978, 5 years after Roe. Well, Hannah, we're all former embryos, but she was formed in a test tube because the sperm and the egg come together. That's how humans start. Then she grew for a few days, and then she was frozen. She was an embryo. She was frozen for 2.5 years, but she was alive. She was viable outside her mother's womb, albeit with artificial aid. And even in 1973, the Roe court said, when the child is viable outside the womb, albeit with artificial aid, the states can ban abortion. Now, at that time, there was about 24 weeks when that could be done. Now it's the moment of conception. They're viable outside the mother's womb. And then the other 2 scientific advances are DNA testing, which started in the 1980s in courts. If you test the DNA of the baby and the mother and send them to a DNA lab and say, send us back the results, they'll say, this is human DNA. These aren't embryos. They're not frogs or lizards in the womb. This is a human. They won't say it's an embryo. They won't know. They'll say, this is a human, either male or female. So we know it's a different human being. It's not the mother's body. If it was her body and you sent 2 samples from one arm or the other, they'd say, this is one human, female. And then the third one is sonograms. Those didn't exist in 73 on wide scale. The scientific concept, they became popular in the 90s and now show us that life begins in the womb. And it's a human being. You can see the face of a baby through the sonogram. You can see the fingers. You can see them sucking their fingers. You can see them doing baby things in the womb through 4D sound sonograms particularly. So where are we now? We're in a de-abortification, desegregation phase. We have a battle in all 50 states, and we can have 151 battlefields. Number one, why do I say that? Every state has 3 branches of government, and every branch of government can be a battlefield. There's the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive branch in all 3 branches of government. State legislatures may be pro-life, but the governor and the prosecutors might be pro-death, and they'll say, we're not going to enforce a pro-life law, or it might be reversed. You might have a state court that finds a right to abortion in the state constitution, even if the legislature tries to ban abortion. So and there may be, I live in Texas. Roe came from Texas, the Roe court decision. Norma lived in Dallas at the time. And in Texas right now, we're one of the first states. It is illegal. It is murder to have an abortion in Texas. Now, the woman is not prosecuted, but all who procure the abortion for her, the people who make pills or perform an abortion on her, could be prosecuted for murder in Texas. And that's why one of the most prominent and notorious abortion facilities, Whole Women's Health, who've been involved in many litigation cases, they have shut down all their Texas business and moved to New Mexico, because New Mexico protects abortion up to the moment of birth. You can have a late-term abortion. That baby can be about to come out of the womb, but if you kill it in the womb and crush the head and suck the brains out and then pull the baby out, that's not considered a murder. It's considered an abortion, which is protected in New Mexico. So we believe that the moral outcry signers, you can continue to have people sign that petition, and we may change the name to the Moral Outcry Petition to abolish abortion in every state, abolish legal abortion. We have laws against murder, but murder continues. But just because some people murder people is not a reason to say, well, let's let the laws go down and we'll just let everybody do what they want. We all want a just society. If someone murdered your mother, someone murdered your child that had been born, wouldn't you want justice for your mother and your baby? Yes, you would. Everybody would. We have an innate sense of justice because God is a God of justice and we're made in the image of God. Or, let me say this, if you're watching this by chance and you believe in evolution, then for millions of years, our species was created with male and female to produce children, and women were evolved to have a highly protective instinct to protect their children. I believe it was God's design. If you're an evolutionist, then the species was protected when women bonded to their children, and you can't put aside a million years of evolution if you believe in that, by saying, well, 10 minutes, you'll never have to think about it again. And that's what one of our women from Georgia, Tina, said. She said, they lied to me, Mr. Parker. They told me 10 minutes, you'll never have to think about it again. Well, that was a lie. Not a day go by I don't think about my child that I murdered. So we will encourage you and we'll let you know when fights are going on in your state. If you're a woman of Operation Outcry, if you've had an abortion, please go to our website and continue to give us your testimonies about how abortion hurt you. We'll provide those to the state legislatures in every state considering banning or restricting abortion. If you have people who want to sign the Moral Outcry Petition, go ahead and tell them to do it. We're still going to be working in every state. We'll work with state legislators to pass laws. And we're going to continue to work on this issue until abortion is no more. Now, in the immediate aftermath, some states, about half the states will probably still be wide open abortion. Half the states will be majorly restricted like Texas or with substantial tests. But birth control is still available. You don't have to get pregnant. You can use birth control. The court decision makes that very clear. And there's a substantial moral difference between preventing a human from coming into being and killing a human that's come into being already. And the court makes that clear. If you're a woman who needs help, and if you know someone who needs help, tell them about the safe haven law in your state. Tell them about the pregnancy resource centers. We're going to have an option line on the screen, and that is 24 hours a day, everywhere in the country. A pregnant woman who needs help can call them, and they'll get them to a resource center that specializes in helping women in pregnancy crisis. So those sources are out there. And I believe, I prefer Christian charity, the pregnancy resource centers, but every state will give you state assistance. And the safe haven law is a government safety net. It's there as a last resort for every woman. And some of the women tell us, well, if I carried the baby that long, I would not be able to give the baby up. Well, that's your choice. It's voluntarily, because that bonding does occur. But you can't kill the baby early on and don't think the bonding's occurred. It has. So what's the best solution for you and your baby and helping a family that needs a child, and that wants to help care for a child? But it's your choice what you do, your choice. But know your options. Get help. It has been a great honor to represent all of these people, starting with Norma and Sandra Rowan Doe. You can read their sworn testimonies. They both asked the Supreme Court to reverse abortion in America because they didn't want to kill children and hurt women. I've represented thousands and thousands of women hurt by abortion. It's been a great honor to represent them, to represent Hannah S. in this case. And also we represented the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation of America and some of the other rabbis and groups associated with them It was the first time the Jewish voice had ever been in the court arguing that abortion is like child sacrifice, and the Jewish religion, Judaism, was the first religion which outlawed child sacrifice. And they also said that as Jews, they were very familiar with crimes against humanity and withdrawing legal protection from a class of human beings. And that they said this was like the Holocaust. And they said they had a special duty as Jewish people to rescue the perishing. We all have a duty from God to help our fellow man. Now's the time to step up, speak the truth in love, and help your fellow man. Please continue to support the Justice Foundation. We represent clients at no charge. It costs thousands of dollars to prepare briefs. We're going to be involved in legal battles. We deeply appreciate your financial support. You can give monthly. A small monthly donation can, like $10. If you do that every month, that's $120 a year. If you do $25 a month, I think that's $600. No, that's probably $350 a month. That's $600 a year. And you might not be able to give $600, but maybe you could do $50 or $25 a month. If you do $100 a month, that's a $1,200 donation a year. So that's why I say it just multiplies, and it gives stability to an organization to know they have monthly donors. If you want to do something now to honor someone who you know worked in the pro-life movement, or if you participated in abortion, and again, I just say this, go to our website and find the abortion recovery networks. There's online networks, there's weekend retreats, there's weekly treats. You don't have to suffer, and this is not an unforgivable sin. And if you know someone who's now telling you, I had an abortion, urge them to go to Operation Outcry, our website on that. But if you go to Justice Foundation, 3 big things come up. Our Center Against Forced Abortion. It is illegal to force a woman to have an abortion in every state. And number 2 is Operation Outcry. If you've had an abortion, you want to give us your testimony while we protect your identity, you do it there. And the Moral Outcry Petition is the 3rd big thing on our website. You can give us your signature or get your friends to signature and say, now we got to fight to abort abortion in every state. That's what we want to do. We want to save babies, save women. We want to help people, and we want to speak the truth in love. And again, I thank you for your prayers, those who prayed for us and interceded for us, those who donated, those who gave their testimonies. Thank you, thank you, thank you.